We call it the silent world. When we imagine the deep ocean, we imagine a place of absolute stillness, a vacuum where light cannot go and where sound dies in the crushing weight of the water. We convince ourselves that the abyss is a tomb, quiet, dormant, and dead. We are wrong. The truth is, the ocean is not silent. It is a factory of noise. If your ears were adapted to hear the frequencies of the deep, standing at the bottom of the Marina Trench would not feel like a library. It would feel like standing on the runway of a busy airport. It cracks, it groans, it howls. Massive ice shelves calve into the sea, creating shock waves that travel for thousands of kilometers. But amidst this chaos of natural noise, there are other sounds. Sounds that do not fit the pattern. Sounds that are too rhythmic to be earthquakes, too loud to be whales, and too organic to be machines. For the last 30 years, something has been broadcasting a signal from the bottom of the southern Pacific. It is not a one-time event. It is not a glitch. It started in 1991, and it hasn't stopped. We call it the upsweep. Today, we're going to listen to the thing that science cannot explain. We're going to dive into the physics of the deep sound channel, the secrets of the Cold War hydrophones that found it, and the terrifying possibility that we are sharing this planet with something massive, something that is singing in the dark. Welcome to the noisy abyss. To understand the mystery of the upsweep, you first have to understand how we found it. We didn't build the global listening network to find whales. We didn't build it to study earthquakes. We built it to find the end of the world. In the 1950s, the Cold War was shifting underwater. The Soviet Union was developing nuclear submarines capable of launching missiles from anywhere in the ocean. The United States needed a way to track them, to hear a propeller turning from an ocean away. Enter Project Caesar and the creation of SOS-US, the Sound Surveillance System. The US Navy secretly laid thousands of miles of cables along the ocean floor. At the ends of these cables were massive arrays of hydrophones, underwater microphones sensitive enough to detect a whisper across a continent. They placed them in a very specific layer of the ocean. It's called the SOFAR channel, the Sound Fixing and Ranging Channel. This is a strange quirk of physics. At a roughly 700 to 1,000 meters, pressure and temperature combine to create a guide for sound waves. In this channel, sound doesn't scatter, it doesn't fade. It gets trapped, focusing into a laser beam of noise that can travel halfway around the globe without losing energy. If you drop a small explosive into the SOFAR channel near Australia, you can hear it explode in Bermuda. For decades, SOSS was a state secret. The men in those windowless rooms listened for the mechanical hum of Soviet engines. They categorized every noise the ocean made: propeller cavitation, seismic rumbles, the songs of blue whales, the chatter of shrimp. If a sound didn't match a Russian sub, it was ignored. It was just biological clutter. But in 1991, the Iron Curtain fell. The Cold War ended, and for the first time, the US Navy opened its doors to civilian scientists. They gave researchers at NOAA access to the most powerful listening device ever built. Dr. Christopher Fox was one of the first to put on the headphones. He expected to hear the natural baseline of the Earth. Instead, he heard a mystery. August 1991, the Pacific Ocean. The hydrophones picked up a signal that shouldn't exist. It came from the remote southern Pacific. It wasn't a short burst, it was a long, continuous train of sound. Each burst lasted several seconds, and unlike the low, rumbling groan of an earthquake, this sound had a shape. It swept upwards. Imagine a siren, low to high. Whoop, whoop. It was narrow band. In acoustics, broadband noise is messy, like the static of a radio. Ice cracking is broadband. Rock grinding is broadband. Narrowband is precise. It occupies a specific frequency. It is pure. A piano note is narrowband. A whistle is narrowband. A voice is narrowband. Nature rarely makes narrowband sounds. Biology does. Machines do. But rocks? Rocks crash. They don't sing. The source level was high enough to be recorded on sensors 5,000 kilometers apart. From Hawaii to the coast of Washington state, the arrays lit up. Whatever was making the sound wasn't small. To generate a low-frequency sound of that intensity, the source needs physical size. A small speaker cannot create a deep bass note that travels for miles. You need a massive subwoofer. In the ocean, a blue whale, the largest animal to ever live, uses its entire massive body to generate its 20 Hz calls. And yet, the upsweep was loud enough to stand out against the background noise of the entire ocean. If it was an animal, it was a leviathan. If it was a machine, it was colossal. If it was geology, it was doing something geology had never done before. You have probably heard of the Bloop. In 1997, 6 years after the discovery of the upsweep, the sensors picked up another massive sound. It was famous. It went viral. It sounded organic. For years, people speculated it was a massive creature, a real-life Cthulhu sleeping in the deep. But science eventually found the answer. The Bloop was consistent with an icequake. It was the sound of a massive iceberg cracking and shearing off the Antarctic shelf. The mystery of the Bloop was solved. It was terrifying, yes, but it was ice. The upsweep is different. The Bloop happened once. It was a singular, violent event. The upsweep is chronic. It is there when the sun rises. It is there when the sun sets. It has been part of the ocean's background noise for over 30 years. And it has one characteristic that ice does not have. One characteristic that volcanoes do not have. One characteristic that forces us to look at the possibility of life. It has seasons. When scientists analyzed the data from 1991 to 1994, they noticed the pattern. The upsweep isn't constant. It changes. It peaks in the spring and autumn. It gets quieter in the winter and summer. Look at the data. Every year, like clockwork, the sound intensifies. Volcanoes do not care what month it is. Tectonic plates do not look at a calendar before they shift. Geology is random. It is chaotic. But biology is rhythmic. Whales migrate in seasons. Birds migrate in seasons. Seasonality is the fingerprint of life. So we are left with a terrifying paradox. The physics of the sound, its volume, its location, suggests geology, but the behavior of the sound suggests biology. Is it a geological process that somehow mimics the cycles of the sun? Or is it a biological entity that is somehow loud enough to mimic a volcano? Let's look at the leading theories. NOAA tracked the upsweep to the Elton Fracture Zone. This is a scar on the face of the Earth, a massive underwater canyon system in the southern Pacific. It is a place of violence. We know there is volcanic activity here. The leading geological theory is that the upsweep is the sound of extensive undersea volcanism. Imagine vast fields of hot lava pouring out onto the cold ocean floor. As the lava cools, it snaps, it cracks, it vibrates. Could millions of tiny volcanic explosions echoing together create that sweeping siren sound? Perhaps. But that brings us back to the seasons. Why would the lava flow harder in October than in January? Some scientists argue that maybe the pressure of the ocean waves affects the lava flow. It is a stretch, but in the world of the blind, it is our best guess. Then there's the other option, the one we don't like to talk about in official papers. Whales are the masters of the upsweep. The fin whale produces a 20 Hz pulse that looks remarkably similar to the upsweep signal. They use these sounds to talk to each other across ocean basins. But there are problems. Fin whales move, they swim, they travel thousands of miles. The source of the upsweep is stationary. It comes from the Elton Fracture Zone and it stays there. So if it is biological, it isn't a whale. It would have to be something that lives in the fracture zone, something that doesn't migrate but still follows a seasonal activity cycle. A colony? A massive bed of unknown organisms releasing gas in unison? Or a single massive entity that has found a home in the deep, calling out into the darkness year after year, waiting for a reply that never comes? Since 1991, the source level of the upsweep has slowly declined. It's still there, it's still audible, but it's getting quieter. Is the volcano slowly going dormant? Or is the creature dying? The upsweep is not alone. Once we started listening, we found the ocean is full of ghosts. There's Julia, recorded in 1999, a distinct moaning sound that lasted for 15 seconds. It sounded so much like a human cooing that they gave it a name. Official explanation, iceberg grounding. There's Slowdown, recorded in 1997, a sound that drops in frequency over 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Think about the energy required to sustain a noise for 7 minutes. Official explanation, friction of a massive ice sheet sliding over land. There's The Whistle, recorded in the Pacific. It sounds like a boiling kettle. We still don't know what it is. Likely volcanic, likely gas, but we don't know. We categorize them, we label them cryogenic or tectonic. We file them away, because the alternative is too uncomfortable. The alternative is admitting that we are standing on the shore of a world we do not understand. We have mapped 100% of the surface of Mars. We have mapped 100% of the surface of the Moon. We have mapped less than 5% of our own ocean floor in high resolution. We assume that because we have satellites, we have seen everything. But satellites cannot look through water. Radio waves cannot penetrate the deep. Down there, our eyes are useless. Down there, we are blind. All we have is sound, and the sounds are telling us that the models are incomplete. The upsweep proves that a massive, seasonal, energetic event can occur on our planet for 30 years, and we still can't say for sure what it is. If we can't identify a noise that is loud enough to be heard from Hawaii to Antarctica, what else are we missing? What smaller sounds are getting lost in the noise? What silent things are watching us pass by overhead? The Elton Fracture Zone sits in the dark, cold water of the South. Right now, as you watch this video, the sound is there. It is sweeping up. Whoop, boop. Maybe it's just hot rock cooling in the dark, a geological accident. Or maybe it's the heartbeat of the abyss, a reminder that Earth is not a tame planet. It is wild, it is deep, and it is very, very loud. We are not the masters of this world. We are just the tenants living in the attic, oblivious to the machinery or the monsters moving in the basement. The next time you look at the ocean, remember the upsweep. Remember that the silence you see is a lie. Underneath the waves, the planet is singing. And we are still trying to figure out the lyrics. The experts are stumped, but maybe you aren't. And if you have a theory, volcano, whale, or something else, tell me in the comments. This was part 3 of our deep dive into the unknown. Next time, we are leaving the sounds behind and looking at the things that should not exist. The deep sea gigantism. Why do small creatures become monsters when they go deep? Subscribe to The Silent Abyss so you don't miss the descent. Until then, stay curious, stay brave, and keep listening, because the abyss is always listening back.